What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with another CD collection update for you guys, as this will be the first of two updates that are featuring stuff that I got while on a random trip to Cincinnati before I went there for the Exciter show this past Wednesday. This was over a month ago. I went to a flea market and two record shops in the Cincinnati area, and this is the first of two parts of everything I got while I was there. Probably the biggest haul of CDs I've gotten out of a city in my life. I came out with a little over 40, so I went a little ham, but a lot of them I got at the record shops, but I got quite a bunch that I got at the flea market that were really cheap and in good condition. So, yeah, why don't we go ahead and get started. First we have Airbourne, Running Wild. This is the debut album from this Australian hard rock band, and I have a soft spot for this album, mainly because Airbourne is one of those really cool, like, modern hard rock bands. Like, I mean, you look at the logo, it's kind of Metallica inspired, but musically, the best way I could describe Airbourne for those uninitiated, I feel like this is a band a lot of people should know about, but for those who don't know, the best way I would describe Airbourne is if you took very early Def Leppard, like the first two albums, On Through the Night and High and Dry, mixed it with AC/DC especially, and a little bit of Motorhead. Well, it's more AC/DC than the other band, so it's really if you took AC/DC and mixed it with early Def Leppard and Motorhead. And I say Motorhead because some of these songs could get like really up-tempo, almost to the level of a Motorhead song. But yeah, songs like really the first three tracks, Stand Up for Rock and Roll, the title track, and Too Much, Too Young, Too Fast were some of my favorite hard rock songs of the late 2000s. But you also got some other really good ones like Blackjack, Cheap Wine and Cheaper Women, Heartbreaker, and Hellfire. Like, if you like good, sleazy, edgy, heavy hard rock, I would give this a listen, and I know they're still going to this day. I haven't really checked out much since their second album, mostly because of that single No Way But the Hard Way is such a fun single. But yeah, this is the go-to Airborne album, in my personal opinion. Next up, we have Borknagar, the Olden Domain. This is the second album from this legendary Norwegian band, and yeah, this is an interesting one. This is a reissue on Cosmic Key Creations, licensed through Century Media, so it's the Super Jewel case, which I would love if more CDs had the Super Jewel case, because I really like these. But yeah, the second album from Borknagar, and this was where they started to shift their sound a little bit. Like, the debut album was still pretty black metal, but it had a lot of folk metal latched on. This album's still in that vein, but this was when they started to integrate a little bit of prog. It wasn't until the follow-up to this where the prog elements really started to come out. And if I recall, I don't remember if this was the first one with ICS Vortex on vocals or if that was after this, but I remember Ivar Björson from Enslaved does contribute to some instrumentation and songwriting on here, so a little bit of an Enslaved connection. But yeah, there's some really fantastic tracks on here, like the opening track, The Eye of Odin, The Winter Way, Ascension of Our Jadbez. I can't really tell because of the handwriting. But yeah, still some really good songs and an evolution to where Borknagar would become eventually to where they are today, a progressive black metal band, or more just progressive metal now. But yeah, this is early beginnings for these Norwegian legends. Alright, next up we have Buckcherry's Self-Titled, the debut album from these hard rock legends, particularly in the late 90s through the 2000s. But I know Buckcherry's one of those bands that kind of gets a bad rep. I don't get why. To me, they kind of seem to be like one of those bands that tried to carry the sleazy hard rock torch after Guns N' Roses broke up a few years before this. And of course, with this one being produced by Terry Date, it's got some punch to it. Like, of course, Lit Up, the opening track, that's pretty much like the big song most people know about from Buckcherry, but you also do have Crushed and For the Movies, Baby, and Drink the Water. So yeah, some really good sleazy hard rock for late 90s. And this was, yeah, during the time when nu metal was the big thing when it came down to rock music. So the fact that you had a band that was playing more like that 80s sleazy sound but in a modern style was kind of refreshing, if you ask me. So yeah, Buckcherry's self-titled debut, I can't find much wrong with it. I think Buckcherry's kind of, if you ask me, they get too much of a bad rep. I think they deserve more respect. But yeah, Buckcherry. Alright, and now we have a pair from Cavalera Conspiracy, or just Cavalera. We have the other two Sepultura re-recordings. I have the first one, the re-recording of Bestial Devastation, and the most recent one that came out just a couple of months ago, Schizophrenia. Of course, I'm not the world's biggest fan of re-recordings, hence why you don't see me review re-recordings whenever they get released. Even though some people thought I probably should have done reviews for the Cavalera re-recordings of old Sepultura, but I thought that would have been kind of copping out of other reviews I would have been able to do, so I decided not to review them, but get them, and I can go in, I guess, review them now. But yeah, so Bestial Devastation, the EP, is really interesting because, yeah, this came out last year, the same day as well as the Morbid Visions re-recording. And of course, you know, with Arthur Risk doing the production now for pretty much everything the Cavalera family does is really cool. But yeah, here with Bestial Devastation, so yeah, pretty much like that early blackened death thrash sound that was developing during the mid-80s, and Max and Igor just kind of latched on to that and wanted to create their own brand of that sound. I mean, hell, you look in the back with the two as kids, kind of wearing a little bit of like corpse paint almost. But yeah, you got some really badass tracks on here, like the title track, Antichrist, Warriors of Death. And then there's even an original on here, Sexta Fera, which was pretty cool, or Fair 13, which was pretty cool, but it doesn't hold a candle to the mastery of the re-recordings of the original songs. So yeah, Bestial Devastation, really cool. Don't think I liked it as much as the other two re-recordings, but it's still really fantastic. And then with Schizophrenia, the most recent one that came out, like I said, just a couple of months ago, this I really, really enjoy, even though I will go ahead and say it personally, I'm a bigger fan of the original Schizophrenia. Yeah, even though the drums kind of sound a little bit thin, but even though I do love the tones on this, there's just something about the original Schizophrenia that I just latch on to a little bit more. But they still do a fantastic job cleaning everything up, especially on tracks like To the Wall, Screams from the Shadows, Escape to the Void. But the song I've been going back to the most out of the re-recording here is the original that they had, Nightmares of Delirium. That song sounds like it could have been on Schizophrenia when it came out in '87. Maybe it was a song they had in those sessions, but it just got left on the cutting room floor, or they just wrote it while they were doing the re-recordings here and thought, you know what, why don't we plop this on here, and it feels like it would have fit the original if they had actually done it back then. But yeah, that's one of my favorite thrash songs of 2024 thus far, is Nightmares of Delirium by Cavalera. So yeah, happy to have all three, and I would definitely agree with everybody. Max, Igor, just stop right here at Schizophrenia. You don't need to re-record Beneath the Remains. Don't dare touch Arise. You can maybe touch Roots, but that would be the only other one I would say to do. But the other three of Beneath the Remains, Arise, and Chaos AD, don't touch those, because those sound fantastic on their own anyways. But yeah, Schizophrenia, Cavalera. Alright, and now we have yet another pair, and we have a pair from Dismember. We have their third album, Massive Killing Capacity, and I believe this was their fifth album, Hate Campaign. Both of these came out different times. I believe Massive Killing Capacity came out in 94 94, 95, I believe. And then Hate Campaign, I think this came out at the end of the 90s, like 1999 or 2000 maybe. But kind of different sounding albums for Dismember. Now, first off with Massive Killing Capacity, still a fantastic album, but it did kind of sound like they were maybe following Entombed's footsteps in terms of going a little more groove forward, not going the death and roll route, but adding a little more groove to their songwriting as opposed to like the really fast, thrashy, punky style that is synonymous with all of Swedish death metal for the most part. But a principal example of them going down that more groove route is the song Casket Garden. That is like legit one of the catchiest Swedish death metal songs of all time in terms of like more groove inspired tracks and not so much about speed. That song kind of has a bit of that death and roll vibe, but it's done very, very well. But other killer tracks on here, like I Saw Them Die, the title track, Warhead, Collection by Blood, some, again, fantastic tracks on here, and this was during the early era of Dismember. And then with Hate Campaign, this one, I've seen a lot of people say that this is the weakest album of the catalog. Even if it is the weakest of their catalog, it's still really damn good. I mean, there's some awesome tracks on here, like Thanatology, Bleeding Over, In Death's Cold Embrace, the title track. Some pretty good stuff on here. Yeah, definitely sounds very different in terms of songwriting compared to what they did in the past. But it's still Dismember at its core. That's all you could ask for. Hey, that rhymed. But with both of these now in the collection, I have Dismember's catalog completed. So, really happy about that. So, thank you, Nuclear Blast, for reissuing all of the Dismember catalog, because it was going to be tough to get if they didn't. So, yeah, Dismember. Alright, next up we have Exodus, Blood In, Blood Out. This is the 10th studio album from these Bay Area thrash legends. Of course, I just recently, over the past couple months, did their discography ranking, and yeah, this was a really good one. Granted, like I said, maybe not the best production, even though it was, again, Andy Sneap doing the production. It did sound uneven at times, but other times it sounded killer. But there are some fantastic songs on here again, you know, Salt the Wound, Collateral Damage, Body Harvest, BTK. Awesome tracks. If you want to know my full opinion about this album, I guess go back and watch my review I did for it when it came out in 2014. I wouldn't suggest that. I suggest just watch when I talked about this album in the discography ranking I did. So, yeah, Exodus. Alright, next up we have Guns N' Roses, Use Your Illusion 2. This is the third studio full-length from these Los Angeles hard rock legends. I mean, again, we should all know about Guns N' Roses by now. Whether you love them or you hate them, you have to respect the mark they did make on music when they came out at the end of the 80s. But yeah, this was very different compared to what GNR was doing before. And this was also around the same time, or at the same time they released Use Your Illusion 1, which is the last GNR album I need to get. But Use Your Illusion 2, out of the two Use Your Illusion albums, easily the superior one, because you got tracks on here like Civil War, You're Gonna Be Mine, Don't Cry, with alternate lyrics, Shotgun Blues, and one of my favorite cover songs of all time when they did Bob Dylan's Knockin' on Heaven's Door. So, again, say what you will about Guns N' Roses, a lot of people have, but you can't deny, like, Slash and Izzy are a very, very good guitar duo. And despite Axl's asshole-ish attitude, you can't deny he had a great vocal style back in the day. So yeah, Guns N' Roses, Use Your Illusion 2. Alright, next up we got another classic, Led Zeppelin, Led Zeppelin IV. The fourth studio full-length from these British hard rock, blues rock, proto-metal legends, whatever you want to call them. But yeah, this was the last of the classic Led Zeppelin era that I was missing. Like, I had 1, 2, 3 Houses of the Holy and Physical Graffiti. This was the only one that I was missing, and thank God I got it, because, you know, Stairway to Heaven, Black Dog, I believe I can't remember if Rock and Roll or Moby Dick was on here. It's been a while, but yeah, I'm just happy I finally got all the Led Zeppelin I wanted. I'm not touching anything after Physical Graffiti, so I'm just happy to have an all-time rock and roll classic right here in my collection. So yeah, Led Zeppelin IV, and that's all I got to say about that. All right, next up, and this is one I didn't expect to get, but I saw it was pretty good price and good condition. Living Colour, Vivid, the debut album from this New York-based funk metal, alternative metal band. It came out in 1988, and of course, you know, the one song I think a lot of people forever associate this band with is Cult of Personality, which I will admit, that used to be one of my many favorite rock songs or metal songs, what have you, to listen to because of Guitar Hero. Like, it was a catchy song, but now I can't listen to it without thinking of fucking CM Punk, because I hate CM Punk, but that's another topic for another time. But there are some other pretty cool tracks on here, like I Wanna Know, Desperate People, Memories Can Wait. Like, there's some legit underrated deep cuts on this album. It's not just Cult of Personality that dominates this album. You got other killer tracks. And of course, Corey Glover's vocals, quite tuneful and soulful, and just sounds like he was having a fucking good time. So yeah, I'm happy that I got an early funk metal pioneering album right here with Living Colour. Alright, next up we have Marduk, Heaven Shall Burn When We Are Gathered. This is the fourth album from these Swedish black metal legends. Of course, most people should know about Marduk, but yeah, I actually listened to some stuff off of this album recently prior, and I actually really liked what I heard. So, excuse me, had a little hiccup on my system there, but still some really killer tracks on here, like Beyond the Grace of God, Glorification of the Black God, The Black Tormentor of Satan, but most especially the final track, Legion. That has to be up there among one of my favorite Marduk songs of all time at this point, I would say. But yeah, I've seen this album get like a lot of universal praise, and there will come today I'll end up having to rank all of Marduk, and honestly, don't be surprised with that whenever I do that, this might be close to the top. I don't know if it will be at the top, depends on how it's aged for me, but yeah, Marduk, Heaven Shall Burn When We Are Gathered. Alright, next up we have Mastodon, Medium Rarities. This is a compilation album that came out in 2020, and it's, well, you got some like B-side tracks like Fallen Torches and A Commotion, but this is largely the instrumental tracks from Emperor of Sand. Well, some of them are like, or no, some from Emperor of Sand, but also you got like instrumentals from let's see, Once More Around the Sun. But yeah, you do get some pretty cool instrumental tracks on here, but of course you get like other B-side tracks, like of course the song Cut You Up with a Lilonium Knife from Aqua Teen Hunger Force, the movie, their cover of Metallica's Orion, the song White Walker, which I can't remember if that was on the show Vikings or Game of Thrones. It was on something. The only tracks that I wish could have been on this compilation, I wish they would have included the song Deathbound. I know they had that and another song as bonus tracks on the deluxe edition of The Hunter, but I would have loved it if they would have put both of those songs onto this, and I think this would have made it even more complete. But this is still an awesome compilation, and yeah, it's just fun to listen to Cut You Up with a Lilonium Knife. So yeah, pretty killer compilation right here. Alright, and then next up we have Municipal Waste, Waste Them All. This is the debut album from this Virginia-based crossover thrash legendary band of the modern times. And yeah, this was where they got their start at just playing like punky, nasty crossover thrash. But granted, this would be before they would kind of find their own sound. Like, you can definitely hear a ton of echoes of bands like DRI and Excel, Suicidal Tendencies, Cro-Mags, among so many other crossover bands from that mid to late 80s period. But yeah, some awesome tracks on here like Toxic Revolution, I Want to Kill the President, which, oh god, that seems to be a thing for some fucking reason right now. Death Prank, the title track, Knife Fight. Fun, goofy songs on here from an otherwise goofy band. So yeah, Municipal Waste, waste them all. Alright, we got a few more left. Next up we have Necrophobic with, oh geez, I have to try and pronounce this one. Hrimthursum? I think I said that right. But this is the 5th studio full-length from these legendary Swedish black and death metal pioneers. And yeah, I've been needing to get more Necrophobic because for the longest time I only had the debut album and Dawn of the Damned. Then the new album came out this year, which is still great. And then I had Blood Hymns, so now I have this. So I'm halfway through the Necrophobic catalog, so I still need to get the rest of them. Oh yeah, and I also do have Mark of the Necrogram. So actually I only have 4 more to go. But yeah, this is another fantastic offering. I mean, when you start off with a track like The Slaughter of Baby Jesus, you know it's evil sounding. And then Blinded by Light and Lightened by Darkness, Eternal Winter, Death Immaculate, Black Hate, just still being all evil and blasphemous and all that kind of shit. But musically, still top level Necrophobic for any fan of black and death metal. So yeah, I'm happy that I got this one. And yeah, this is a reissue from Century Media that came out a couple of years ago. So I'm pretty confident that the rest of the Necrophobic catalog was reissued by Century Media, so I won't have a difficult time getting the rest whenever I can. So yeah, Necrophobic. Alright, next up we have Paradise Lost, Shades of God. This is the 3rd studio full-length from these British death doom / gothic metal pioneers. And yeah, this definitely marked a big shift in Paradise Lost's sound. Like the first 2 albums, Lost Paradise and Gothic, were very much death doom albums, like cornerstone death doom albums during that era. Then you get to this one, still has some death doom to it, but this is definitely hinting at where they were going to go on the next album, which was Draconian Times, and that's that more gothic metal inspired sound. I'd like to think that this was the beginning of when I think, you know, Nick and Greg and all the guys in the band at the time were listening to Typo Negative, even though they only had 2 albums out at this point, Typo did. But maybe they heard what Typo was doing and thought, you know what? Why don't we kind of follow down that path a little bit and see where we can go with it? And this was the beginning of that gothic period for Paradise Lost. And granted, it does kind of sound a little mismatched at times because, you know, you still have some of the death doom songs on here and Nick's still doing growling vocals, but you start to hear him do more clean vocals on here. But songs like Embrace, Daylight Torn, Crying for Eternity, The World Made Flesh, great songs, but they definitely would get that gothic side better on Draconian Times and Icon. No, Draconian Times is 2 albums later. I meant to say Icon was what followed this. So yeah, Icon was where it really kind of solidified, and then even further on Draconian Times. But yeah, it's cool that I now have the first, well, aside from Icon, I still need to get Icon, but I almost got the early period of Paradise Lost. So yeah, I'm happy that I got this. Alright, and then the penultimate album we have, Power Trips. Opening Fire 2008 to 2014. This is the legendary compilation from, of course, Texas crossover thrash badasses. We still miss you, Riley. I still can't believe you're gone. But yeah, this is a compilation that featured like basically a lot of songs from like EPs or B-sides, what have you, except for Hornet's Nest. But then again, I think that came out a little bit after this compilation came out, so I don't think they had the time to add that to this. But if they would have added the song Hornet's Nest to this compilation, then this would have been like 100% perfect. But it's still amazing, especially for tracks like Armageddon, Blues, Brainwave, but especially Suffer No Fool is one of my favorite Power Trip songs of all time. Of course, we know right now they got the frontman from the band Fugitive doing live vocals. Who knows if he's actually going to fully join the band. But who knows what's going to happen with Power Trip now, especially, you know, with Riley gone. They said they plan to continue, but who knows what's going to happen in terms of, like, albums. Maybe it'll just be a touring band. I don't know. But anyway, so yeah, Power Trip, Opening Fire, 08 to 14. And then the final one for part 1 of the Cincinnati update, we have Red Hot Chili Peppers, Blood, Sugar, Sex, Magik. If I remember right, I think this was the 4th album from these legendary funk, alternative rock, rap rock legends. I mean, who out there doesn't know about Red Hot Chili Peppers at this point? Name me somebody who doesn't know this band. But yeah, this was a pretty big pillar album, 1991, so this was right when, you know, like alternative music in general was exploding here in the States, and this was kind of a big album during that era, because this was where you get that classic lineup with, you know, Anthony Kiedis, Flea, John Frusciante, and Chad Smith, so that classic lineup of Red Hot Chili Peppers. But yeah, you get some classic tracks on there like Suck My Kiss and Give It Away, Under the Bridge. But man, you do have some killer songs on here. And this was one of the heavier Red Hot Chili Peppers albums. I guess if you wanted to call them alternative metal at this point, it would kind of be fitting. Even though it's kind of pushing out, I'd say it's more hard rock lenient. But yeah, I'm happy that I got this one, and of course, already had Californication. I still need to get Stadium Arcadium, and then I think I'd be good with Red Hot Chili Pepper albums, because, I mean, all the respect in the world for them, how they're still one of the biggest bands in the world after all these years. So, yeah, Red Hot Chili Peppers. And that, ladies and gentlemen, knocks out yet another update. I still got one in the works for the other half of the Cincinnati haul that I got. And then, of course, I will do an update with, like, the Toledo haul, as well as the stuff I got while I was at the Exciter show, and go from there. So, and actually, I do have an order coming in from 20 Bucks Spin that will be included. Maybe the update after the Cincinnati update will be the 20 Bucks Spin albums I got, as well as something else I bought, and the stuff that I got at the concert last week. So that will be after the Cincinnati update, and then it will be the Toledo update, whenever that happens. But anyways, what's your favorite album out of everything that I've shown here today? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Keep your horns high and your dreams wet.
Thank you for your patronage.